Oh, you're hyped up. Yes, I'm getting hyped up. Rise up, line and cleanse from my mic up. High up, gold medals up in my clutch. You better get ready, cause soon the time's up.
I work very hard, but I know that the harder I work, you know, it's gonna benefit, you know, my kids, you know, my mother, my father.
We coming in hot. We coming in hot.
For a boxing champion, it never hurts to have a takedown specialist in your corner. For today's sparring session, that's Micah Parsons, Cowboys all-pro edge rusher. A man who admires Spence because he hits like him.
Short shot, short shot.
It's just a different game. No one can save you out there. You're on your own. If I miss a tackle, I got someone to get my back. You know, if I drop the ball, someone can pick me up. You know, if Earl drops the ball, that's over.
After years of questions, setbacks, and speculation, Errol Spence is finally back in serious training as he prepares for a high-stakes showdown with Tim Tszyu. Meanwhile, Ronnie Shields has been impressed by Spence's condition ahead of his return.
Time in a while.
You know, surprisingly to me, you know, after being off 3 years, you know, he looks really great, you know. And, you know, I told him from the very beginning, I say, I want to see what you got. So I say, so I'm gonna push you hard these first 3 days. He said, okay, I'm ready. You know, so that let me know that he's been working out. He's been doing his conditioning. And that's what I really want to see, what his conditioning was gonna be like. And I pushed him fast and hard, and he hung right in. So I said, you're good. So now we just come up with a game plan, and you know, we'll work on that.
At the same time, Ronnie Shields respects Tszyu's toughness and fearless approach to competition, viewing those traits as key assets in the ring. However, Shields believes the fight will be decided by Spence's performance rather than Tszyu's strengths.
Well, I think Tim Tszyu is a really good fighter. Can't take that away from him. He'll fight anybody, you know, and he got a lot of heart. So, you know, that plays a big factor in the sport of boxing. So, you know, we just have to, Errol have to be Errol. He can't be nobody other than himself. And I think that'll take care of him.
Continuing the debate, Bozy Ennis expects Spence to be overlooked heading into the matchup and believes he can deliver a strong performance. Ennis views the opponent as a legitimate challenge who brings a fighting mentality, making this an important test for Spence.
I think that's going to be a good fight, man. Everybody just sleeping on my man Spence, man. I think Spence going to do what he's supposed to do, man. I think, and then he fighting a guy that can really fight. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that, you know, he's a good boxer, nothing, but he comes to fight. You know what I mean? So this is going to be a good test for Spence, I think. And I think Spence going to do well.
Moreover, Bozy Ennis believes Spence must stay true to his aggressive style while making sure he remains defensively responsible. Ennis feels Spence's pressure could become a major factor as the fight unfolds and may ultimately shape the outcome.
What should Spence add in this training camp for Tim Tszyu? He's been out of the ring for a while. What should he be doing?
What Spence should be doing? Spence should be Spence, man. But he must move his head, though. Because Spence should come right at you and just throw the punches. He got to and work on catching them shots. You know what I mean? If you ain't going to move your head, you got to catch some shots. You know what I mean? With your hands, you know?
Decision and stoppage. How's that fight at?
I think it's going to be a stoppage. I think it's going to be a stoppage. Somebody getting stopped. And you know I'm going with Spence, so.
Adding another perspective, Terence Crawford is confident Spence is capable of making a strong return against Tszyu. Crawford expects Spence's experience and ability to quickly re-establish himself at a high level to play a major role, giving the former champion a strong chance of returning with a victory.
Errol Spence is returning against Tim Tszyu. Just wanted your thoughts on the return of Errol.
I think Errol going to do an amazing job. I'm looking forward to him getting back in the ring, and I think, you know, he's going to be successful in his comeback, and I picked him to win.
As anticipation continues to build, Keith Thurman views the matchup as a closely contested battle, with both fighters bringing different strengths into the ring. Thurman believes those differences could make this one of the more intriguing fights to break down.
Tim Tszyu has the advantage of activity, and then Spence has the advantage of pedigree. right? He's been at another level. He's achieved more, even though it's at 147. I just feel like he's really done more, been in the ring with more world-class fighters, and had some victories against solid world-class fighters, where Tim Tszyu has not been as victorious when the opposition really hits that A class, you know? So that's the way I break down the fight. I say Tim Tszyu staying in motion benefits him, but the pedigree and being an Olympic boxer, just different overall things that favors Spence. But it's a solid 50-50 because they both just have some questions that need answers, and we'll get our answer come July for sure.
I mean, I see that the fight's at a catch weight.
From a stylistic standpoint, Roy Jones Jr. views the matchup as a fitting comeback fight, with both Spence and Tszyu looking to rebuild momentum after setbacks in their careers. Jones is especially impressed that Spence chose a dangerous opponent rather than a low-risk return bout. In his view, that decision reflects the confidence of a fighter who still believes he can compete at the highest level.
And I think it's a smart return because it's also against a guy who was on the way up there, who made it to the top but had some struggles, and now he's on the incline trying to get back up too. So it's two guys trying to get back up. I think it's a great situation. But the biggest thing I gotta say that I love about Errol Spence is that Errol don't want no easy fights. Errol don't want to fight guys that are nobody.
He AKA no tune-up.
No,
he don't want no
He
tune-up.
wants challenges. You understand me? He wants challenges. And for him to challenge a person like Tim Tszyu, when Tim Tszyu has been regularly fighting for the last 3 years, he's been not doing much. That says a lot about Errol, but that tells you exactly how much fight is still left in Errol.
Furthermore, Andre Ward has long viewed Spence as a fighter who earns respect through action rather than words. Ward believes Spence's physical style, toughness, and willingness to take on difficult challenges have always made him a dangerous opponent. At the same time, he recognizes that Spence is returning under unusual circumstances, with age and inactivity adding extra intrigue to the matchup.
He's always been that guy, even in the amateurs, you know, and I've always had respect for Errol Spence because he's a real fighter. You know, he's not a guy that talks a lot, but he brings a big stick to the battle. And you know, when you deal with Errol Spence, you got to bring your lunch pail because he's going to bring it and he's nothing to play with. Obviously, being 36 years of age, being off as long as he hasn't had the tune-up fight.
Additionally, Caleb Plant views Spence as a fighter who has never backed down from the biggest challenges in the sport. Plant believes Spence's decision to return against a dangerous opponent is consistent with the mindset he has shown throughout his career. However, he acknowledges that the long layoff and advancing age add an extra layer of uncertainty heading into the fight.
And one thing I love about Errol Spence is he's never been scared to chase a big fight.
Never.
And one thing he's always said, he's always like, you know, I don't really need a tune-up fight. And I think maybe the only reason that he spoke about him in the tone that he did is because, not because of the one loss, but maybe because of the time away from the ring and with him being, you know, not a spring chicken anymore.
Expanding his thought, Caleb Plant sees Tszyu as a dangerous challenge, which makes Spence's decision to face him immediately even more impressive. Plant respects Spence's mindset, believing he has always been driven by the toughest opportunities rather than the safest path.
But still, Tim Tszyu's a bad boy, so for Errol Spence to come in and want that fight right off the bat after time away, that's why I always like salute Errol and tip my hat to him, not only because he's a great fighter, but just his mentality and his willingness to chase big fights.
Continuing the discussion, Greg Hackett believes Spence could return with a more measured approach while still keeping his trademark attacking mindset. He expects Spence to place greater emphasis on control, timing, and defensive awareness, making him harder to counter without reducing his offensive threat.
Goal heading into that fight.
Same mentality, but I think I think we're gonna see Errol work behind his jab a little bit more with the movement. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna see Errol working, but more movement. Not movement like a boxer, but just he's still being a predator, but he's just making sure he moves side to side, or move his head, or take a step back with his hands up. You know, just to give you the space enough for you to do what you gotta do, but not do any damage to him, and then him enough space for him to be able to get right back to you. I don't think it's a big difference between Derrick James and Ronnie Shaw. I think that just the tempos are a little different.
Furthermore, Greg Hackett expects Tszyu to approach the fight with purpose while avoiding unnecessary distractions inside the ring. He expects both Tszyu and Spence to have moments where they can impose their strengths, but neither fighter is likely to take complete control of the contest. Hackett feels the outcome will ultimately depend on which boxer makes the better decisions and adapts more effectively as the fight unfolds.
Tim got to come out and be aggressive with a jab and not getting caught up in little arguments where they going back and forth with each other. You know, if they trading, they sitting there trading back and forth, they either one of them got a shot. But whoever's being a little bit smarter than the other, I think has a chance. I think that's how this fight goes. I don't think Errol Spence just going there and just bully Tim Tszyu. But I think it'll be spots where he could play bully. I don't think Tim Tszyu could go in there and just do what he went to Earl, but it's going to be spots he can get off. You know, whoever's the smarter fighter wins this fight.
As the debate continues, Timothy Bradley predicts Spence will stop Tszyu, viewing the fight as a collision between a proven former champion and a fighter who has absorbed too much damage. Bradley argues that Tszyu's toughness remains intact, but years of brutal battles and heavy shots have gradually worn down his body. In his view, that accumulated punishment could finally catch up with Tszyu against an opponent like Spence.
But yeah, I think Errol Spence, I think he gonna beat Tim Tszyu. He gonna knock him out. Tim Tszyu is done. He 31 and he done. Too much wear and tear. He got his knocked out a couple of times. You know, mentally, he's seemed like he's strong mentally, right? And he wanted, but his body is not out. It's not responding. You know, like it should be. You know, a lot of big knockouts and wars for Tim Tszyu, man. He get hit too much. You know, and that's what happens when you get hit too much. Your time, hey, is up real fast. Yeah, your career is shortened like a mug. So I got Errol Spence in that fight.
Meanwhile, Timothy Bradley believes Spence's disciplined style could be a major problem for Tszyu. Bradley expects Spence to stick to his strengths, apply constant pressure, and take advantage of Tszyu's tendency to stand and trade rather than rely on movement. In his view, that straightforward approach could play directly into Spence's hands.
Errol Spence know what the hell he got to do. Errol Spence is the master of the basics. He know what the hell he got to do. Ain't nothing going to change. He going to let them hands go. He going to take it to Tim Tszyu, you know. And Tim Tszyu is one of those guys, you know, stand right in front of you. He ain't one of them guys that pick up his feet and move. Nah, Tim Tszyu little brother better than him. He better than him. Tim Tszyu brother probably be whooping his in sparring. Yeah, he be whooping his. I already know he do. Yeah, lefty, he be moving his head side. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I know he be whooping his in the gym for real.
Analyzing the matchup, Sebastian Fundora views the matchup as filled with uncertainty, largely because both fighters enter with significant questions surrounding them. While Fundora leans toward Tszyu due to his recent activity, he also recognizes that Spence remains a proven elite-level fighter despite the setbacks and time away from the ring. In his view, Spence still possesses the ability to change the fight with a single performance.
I think it's an interesting fight, you know. This guy's been losing. Tszyu's been losing, but at least he's been active, you know? At least he's been active. Spence hasn't been seen anywhere in boxing, in the ring, wise.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think losing to Crawford like that, then taking the layoff like that, and then getting the car accidents, these things are bigger losses than just the losses that Tszyu had, you know? I favor Tszyu in the fight. I won't be surprised if Spence knocks him out or win. I mean, Spence is still one of the top dogs, you know? You can never take that away from him, you know?
Continuing his thought, Sebastian Fundora believes returning directly to world-level competition after a lengthy absence is a risky approach for any fighter. Fundora argues that tune-up bouts serve an important purpose, allowing boxers to regain timing, shake off inactivity, and evaluate where they stand before facing elite opposition. In his view, jumping straight into a championship-caliber fight leaves little room for adjustment.
You know, if Spence was to come in and fight a Joey Spencer or whoever like that, you know, of that degree, and then maybe two fights like that, and then come back and fight Tszyu, at least the activity's there, at least some of the rust is off, you know, or all the rust is off. But to just jump in back to the world championship level, you can't expect to be at that level right away.
Yeah. So tune-up fights are important then?
Absolutely. You need to see where you're at. how you gonna come out?
Looking at the stylistic matchup, Sean Porter believes both fighters possess styles capable of creating problems for the other, making the matchup difficult to predict. However, Porter gives Spence the edge in terms of overall precision, pointing to his cleaner execution and more refined punch selection. In his view, those qualities could help Spence capitalize on the key moments that often decide close fights.
Styles make fights, and I think that both guys got perfect styles to beat one another. I disagree. I think Errol Spence is the sharper fighter. I do. I think he's the sharper fighter. I think he's crispier. And I think his shot, his punch selection is better. And I think that he has the better shot of landing that right punch at that right time.
From a different analytical angle, Sean Zittel believes Tszyu still has plenty left to offer at a high level, pointing to qualities that continue to make him a dangerous contender. While Zittel views Tszyu as the more effective striker at this stage, he also notes that Spence may hold physical advantages that could influence the matchup. In his view, the contrast between Tszyu's precision and Spence's size makes the fight particularly intriguing.
He still looked good. He had something in the tank left. I don't think he's quite what he was before the Fundora fights and Bakram, but he's still, I don't know. I'm interested in the Spence fight because in this fight, he still would put some, take something off the shots and then boom, finish with a sharp shot to the body, a real sharp shot to the body, or a real heavy left hook, nice uppercut here and there. And so what I'm curious about in the Spence fight, from what I've seen from each of their last fights, Spence 3 years ago against Terence, and against Terence Crawford, he'll make you not look good. He'll make you not quite look like what you are. But I still think Tszyu is a little sharper punch for punch. The sharp punches he would put together off his combinations, they still look sharper than Errol. But the interesting thing is, Errol Spence, I think, is bigger than him.
Still, Andre Dirrell views the fight as a dangerous test for both fighters, with neither man likely to leave the ring untouched. While he acknowledges the miles already on Tszyu's career, Dirrell is even more curious about what Spence has left after years away from competition. He believes the biggest question will be answered once Spence is pushed into difficult moments and forced to prove he can still perform at the highest level.
Like I said with Tim Tszyu, he's taken enough punishment. He's been knocked out. He's been beat up, he's been cut along on his way to victories. He's been in some wars, right? And so I think it's a good matchup, but both fighters are going to get beat up a little bit. My question is, how is Errol going to come out of this? Is he going to look the way he used to? Well, that's going to be a no for me. But at the same time, it's not hard. He was a come forward puncher, bruiser. You know what I'm saying? So maybe he can still do that, but the punches that he has to endure, I wonder how he'll absorb those, and we'll see by the final bell.
The closer this fight gets, the more intriguing the questions become. Errol Spence is attempting one of the most fascinating comebacks in boxing, returning after years away from the ring to face a dangerous opponent who has remained active against top-level competition. On the other side stands Tim Tszyu, a fighter looking to silence any doubts after recent setbacks and remind the boxing world why he was once considered one of the division's biggest threats. With both men carrying momentum, pressure, and uncertainty into the matchup, neither can afford another disappointing night. What makes this fight so compelling is that both fighters have something significant to prove. Can Spence show that the long layoff has not diminished the skills and determination that made him a champion, or will Tszyu's recent experience and sharpness be the deciding factor? Is this the beginning of a remarkable comeback story for Spence, or the moment Tszyu reestablishes himself among the division's elite? Share your prediction in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest boxing coverage.